Welcome back to Thompson's Coins, where today it's finally arrived, the latest instalment of the Renix Australian Coin and Banknote Price Guide. So here it is. It's been a long time coming. There were a couple of delays. Invariably, whenever there's a new release like this of a really useful guide, people come into the shop wanting to order it, and I tell them it'll be here in a week, it'll be here in 2 weeks, and then for whatever reason it gets delayed and things like that. But I'm delighted to say the guide is finally here. This is the 33rd edition of the Renix Australian Coin and Banknote Values Guide. And I've got to say, it's such a useful guide in terms of if you're just starting out or if you've got quite a lot of knowledge already. It's always useful to refine some of that knowledge with a guide like this. It's the type of thing that back in the day when I used to live and work interstate and I used to fly around quite a bit, this guide was always my accompanying choice of reading material whenever going on flights interstate and things like that, because you can pick it up, you can just have a glance at it and get a little bit of information. Alternatively, you can also start to dig a little deeper and you can find some of the areas that perhaps you start to gravitate towards. And certainly for a lot of people, myself included, it sort of represents the introduction to the rabbit hole, which leads you down into the wonderful world of coin and banknote collecting. And I say it a lot, there is no better hobby. And so if you have an interest in coin and banknote collecting, a guide like this is a really useful tool. One of the reasons is it gives you a lot of insight as to some of the things that you should be looking out for. So if you're looking at, say for instance, we'll take banknotes, it will give you information on all of the print runs. It will let you know the first and last prefixes to look out for if that's the way you want to go about collecting. With coins, you have mintage data, so you know if you are collecting, say, $1 coins and you find that there's a particular year that you just can't seem to find in your change when you're noodling around and things like that, you can use a guide like this to give you that information. It will let you know that perhaps there was a smaller run that year, or in some instances, it was a mint set only year. So it just gives you a lot of useful information to go about your collecting journey. Another thing that invariably comes up with guides like these is inconsistencies and things like that. It is acknowledged in the guide that one of the primary forces driving values in this industry is supply and demand. So understandably, when you have a printed guide like this, it is not a live, updated, floating market type of thing. It really is a useful resource to give you indicative information. And also it's worth noting that a lot of the pricing outlaid in this catalogue is based on a retail setting. So these are prices that you would expect to pay in a retail setting. So there are instances where you may be going to sell your collection and you may be disappointed to find that all of the prices that you achieve don't necessarily match up perfectly to a price guide like this. But that's also just the nature of the industry. When you're dealing with supply and demand and various market forces, something like this really does need to be taken as a really useful and valuable learning tool, but not something that you can necessarily wander around and use as the be-all, end-all definitive fact on every single price of every single coin and banknote listed in the guide. Something else that's useful with a guide like this is it has a lot of reputable coin dealers advertised in it, and it's always exciting. Now this is the second year I get to do this. If I can find it. Ta-da! So I have an ad in the current Renix guide, and it was kind of nice to go down memory lane. It wasn't that long ago, but I've got the 32nd edition here with my original ad. So that was a really exciting milestone for me in a business sense to have my first advertisement in a printed guide like this. And now we have the second installment. It's also kind of nice to think about that first ad, that photo was taken in my little home office. Now the second one was taken right here where I'm standing in the shop. So that was taken on opening day actually, when this shop very first opened. So I think that's kind of nice to know that I'm now part of at least 2 iterations of the Australian Coin and Banknote Values Guide. The guide also has a lot of useful information on things like grading, terminology that you will expect to see when you're out there in the market looking at coins and banknotes and things like that. It gives you really useful information in terms of how to determine the grade of something, because for a lot of people, it can be a bit of a grey area, and if you don't understand grading terminology and things of that nature, it can be very risky, particularly if you're dealing with people that aren't reputable dealers, that don't do this for a living and have a familiarity with coins and banknotes and how to accurately grade and appraise them. So guides like this can be really handy. If someone hands you a crumpled up banknote and tries to tell you it's uncirculated, although it's pretty obvious, but a guide like this has the terminology and reference points that you can point to explain to them that no, indeed, that is not uncirculated. Here is the definition of an uncirculated banknote and things like that. It's always very exciting anytime we have a new piece of useful literature enter the market. So it's a wonderful day. I'm very excited, but it is time to go get a coffee and properly start the day. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoy coin collecting, the greatest hobby in the world, you can come on down and visit us here. We're at Shop 8 in the Boronia Mall, which is 50 Dorset Square in Boronia. We are open from Tuesday to Friday, 10 till 4. We're also here on Saturdays from 10 till 3. That's it. New Renix guide. That's the headline. Always exciting anytime a new guide gets released. Check it out. I highly encourage you to have a read. There's a lot of useful information in there. Thank you very much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you soon.